Here's all my people, my 5 people. Thank you, thank you. All right. Here's some good news. A major league pitcher might throw thousands of pitches in his career. First, he strides his foot towards home, cocks his hand back, hips and torso rotate, then the throw. The rotation of the hips and torso rotate the arm, applying extreme force to the shoulder and elbow ligaments. Sometimes too much force. From the little leagues to the major leagues, pitching injuries are on the rise, and we have to stop them for the good of baseball. Home runs are flashy, but without adequate pitching, any of our favorite teams would be out of the pennant race. Changes must be made on every level of play to protect our pitchers. Today I'll be examining pitching injuries on the rise, some theories of why we're seeing an increase, and some probable solutions to the problem of chronic pitching strain. So, how many injuries are we talking here? The answer is probably more than you think, and definitely more than there should be. The UCL, or ulnar collateral ligament, is a major ligament found in our elbows. According to the Cleveland Clinic, repetitive overhead motion can stretch, partially tear, or completely tear the ligament. It's not only painful, but it's also an incredibly costly injury. In 2022, Major League Baseball spent $486 million on elbow injuries alone, with over 30,000 days of lost play. That cost is more than Mike Trout's entire contract, which is a contract that set records when it was signed in 2019. Why so many days missed? Well, rest takes time if it's a moderate strain or tear, and the rehabilitation from UCL reconstruction surgery, or Tommy John surgery as it's known, can take up to 18 months. So why so many, according to the MLB report on pitcher injuries published by the Officer of the Commissioner on December 17th, 2024, the number of pitchers on the IL has increased from 212 in 2004 to 485 in 2024. This nearly 15% increase per year warrants a closer look at how we're utilizing and how we're training our pitchers. I went over the traits of a UCL tear, the financial and individual impact of the injury, as well as the rise in injuries that we've seen. But why such an increase? There's a couple of theories. How fast is too fast to throw, and how early is too early to start? I'm going to explain what velocity is, how it can hurt players, and what early specialization is. According to the MLB, velocity, or velo, is the #1 way that we evaluate pitchers. It represents the max speed that a pitch reaches at any point between the mound and home plate. Now, why is it so important? Baseball Almanac says that home runs have gone up by 3.9% per game per year since the inception of the game. Hitters are getting better and better, and velocity is the only way to remain competitive against these eagle-eyed sluggers. And since 2002, velocity has increased by 3.5%, or by miles per hour each year. Throwing in the high 90s is not without risk. Throwing that fast is bad for that super important UCL, and throwing at max power for too many innings can cause it to snap. In a study by Ryan Coughlin, published October 21st, 2022, by the International Society of Arthroscopy, Knee Surgery, and Orthopedic Sports Medicine, the most common pitch characteristic reported was pitch velocity, with 4 out of 5 studies showing increased velocity being significantly associated with native UCL injuries. Some of you might not understand why the pitchers are risking throwing at this high velocity, even when they know the risks. From what some MLB players say, that is the only way. What is said is that getting outs is what gets you to the majors, but velocity is what gets you drafted. Because of this emphasis on velocity when getting drafted, we've seen an increase in early specialization and subsequent early injuries. Head physician of the New York Yankees, Dr. Christopher Ahmed, details the rise of adolescent injuries in his Medium article, The Hidden Epidemic: Why UCL Injuries Are Rising Across All Levels of Baseball. His research shows that 1 out of every 4 high schoolers will experience a UCL injury before graduation. Dr. Ahmed goes on to explain the dangers of early specialization, which is specializing as a pitcher very early on, as well as the emphasis on year-round play not allowing for long periods of rest. Early pressure to perform is causing earlier and earlier UCL injuries. Now, I went over why pitchers find velocity so important and how it can injure them, as well as how these injuries are starting earlier. Now that I've gone over the injuries and their causes, let's talk about some solutions. The MLB needs to protect its pitchers from their own competitive spirits. I'm going to explain reducing injuries in adolescents and propose MLB rule changes. In order to reduce the number of adolescent injuries, I would limit Little League starters to 70 pitches, the prior being 95. This could reduce the overuse in young players as well as ending the long-term injuries that they're suffering early on. I also agree with a proposition by Eric Cressy, who is a youth baseball coach out of Florida. He was interviewed by Steve McGargy of the AP on March 25, 2025. Cressy believes that a scouting blackout period for the months of October, November, and December could limit the interest in playing in these off-season leagues, which could reduce the amount of repetitive strain seen in younger players. The MLB is no stranger to changes either. They did the pitch clock in 2023, they put the ghost runner on second in 2020, they took away sticky stuff in 2021. The last one, let's talk about it. Put it back. Put it back, MLB. Put it back. I'm not suggesting we send these guys out there with pine tar, aka the stickiest stuff, but what I am suggesting is a league-wide, league-developed rosin. The rosin that the MLB currently provides does not provide enough grip for these guys to stay competitive against the hitters that they are facing. Now, the next suggestion comes from the MLB itself last year. They suggested requiring starting pitchers to pitch 6 full innings. Now, they would be allowed to leave the game if they hit 100 pitches, if they gave up 4 runs, or if they got injured, which you could get around that by putting them on the IL, but whatever. Either way, it would still reduce the amount of pitchers that are throwing at max velocity for like only 3 innings. If a pitcher thinks that he has to stay out for 6 innings, then he will pitch like he has to stay out there for 6 innings. I talked about limiting pitch counts for and a scouting-free period for young players, as well as some implementation rules for professional baseball to reduce the overuse. Reduce overuse. It's a simple idea, hard to put into practice. We have to make changes to baseball, from the bottom to the top, to limit these injuries. In this speech, I talked about UCL tears and their rising prevalence, some reasons for the increases that we've seen, and some options to reduce the amount of wear and tear experienced by pitchers at every level. Home runs are exciting, but if every hit is a home run, will they feel as important? Thank you.
Yeah!